Hello, everybody. Hello, so glad to see everybody here today. Welcome to day 2 of our Archive Challenge Week, a partnership with the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. We've got Steve Winnick in the room hosting us today, Debra Cowan in the room singing with us today, and Katie Abadou on the tech. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining today. We want to say hi to everybody out there on Facebook. Thank you, Facebook, for coming in and hanging out with us today. And thank you and hello also to hello, Suzanne. Nice to see you today. I think coming in from Maryland. Hi, Mabel in Mass. Hello, Deli, also in Maryland, not quite visible yet. Hello, Dan in Virginia. Nice to see you. Hello, Hoda. Nice to have you with us today. Good to have you back again. Christiana in Rockville and Bob in the background. Hello. Hello, Al, on your guitar. Nice to see you. Carolyn, Connecticut. Hello. Hello, Pat Neal, Katie Abadou's mom. Glad you joined again today. Susan in Ohio. Hello. Kate in Charlottesville. Hello. There's Deli, she's appeared. Hi, Annette in California and Arlene in California. Good to see you both. Hello to Gladys. Nice to have you with us today, Gladys. Coming in from Prince Edward Island. Thank you for the reminder. Hi, Karen in Oregon. Nice to see you. Pete and Janet in Toronto. Hello, Sue Sean. Hello, Shari. Nice to have you coming in today from New Hampshire. Bonnie in Idaho. Hello. Hello, Storm in Mass. Fred from the DC Labor Chorus. Kathy in Virginia. Hello. So nice also to see so many of your faces last night at the community sing. That was really fabulous. Hello, Jamie in Victoria. Hello, Ann in Maryland. Gary in Mass. Luda in Victoria. Hello, Barb in Virginia. Nancy's Irish Cow in Washington State. Tom in Victoria. Hello, Jane. Hello, Kevin in New Hampshire. And folks not on video today, Marcia and Kachina, Joni, Barbara, and others still coming in the room. Ruth, glad you're all here today. Thanks so much for being here. We are super excited to be hosting a second day and excited about this whole week of amazing music coming out of the Library of Congress, American Folklife Center's incredible archive. And of course, happily here to host with us today is the amazing, very brightly colored Steve Winnick. Let's welcome Steve.
Thanks, everyone. So yeah, it's kind of a rainy day here in Tacoma Park, so I thought I'd brighten things up with my bright island shirt. I'm Steve Winnick, or Stephen Winnick, as my screen will tell you, and I'm a folklife specialist at the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress. And we're now in our 4th Archive Challenge Partnership Week on the Daily Antidote of Song. So I want to thank you all for joining us, and I want to thank Joe, of course, for being such a great host, and Katie for taking care of all of the background details that you don't even see, but she does a lot for us. And I also want to thank Busy Graham and Carpe Diem Arts for having this wonderful program, and Washington Revels for helping to get it started. So thanks for joining us to all of you as well. And as you'll remember from yesterday, I normally do this with my partner in crime, Jennifer Cutting. Believe it or not, she had to go to the physical Library of Congress today, as I will on Thursday. It's our first day back since the pandemic to actually work in the building. And they're staggering us so that we're not all in there at the same time, which is why she's in today, I'll be in Thursday. So we'll be taking turns doing the Antidote solo pretty much this week. And I should tell you, all of you Figgy fans, since we live in different houses, I'm sad to tell you that the archive cat is not in the house that I'm broadcasting from today. So you will not see Figgy on camera today, I'm afraid. But you do have the chance of seeing him tomorrow. So I should say that Jennifer and I just love working in the largest folklore archive in the US and one of the largest in the world. Our archive, as we like to boast, dates all the way back to 1928, and it contains field recordings of famous performers like Muddy Waters and Pete Seeger and Aunt Molly Jackson, Woody Guthrie, Gene Ritchie, Leadbelly. Such great people are in the archive. But there are also thousands more amazing tradition bearers that you've never heard of, ordinary working people who sang for the archive or told stories for the archive. And these form part of the unwritten history of our country. For example, we have thousands of Native American cylinders going all the way back to 1890. So we have the recorded oral histories and oral stories of Native Americans alongside all of the other recordings that I've mentioned. So in 2015, we had the idea of taking something that had already been going on since the archive was founded, but giving it a platform and a name. So since the archive was founded, people have been using our recordings as the basis for their own interpretations. Um, Things like, the first song on Johnny Cash's first LP is Rock Island Line, and that's a song from our archive. That's just a single example of the kinds of stuff that you find out there. Many of Leadbelly songs, Leadbelly worked as an assistant for Alan Lomax and John A. Lomax during their collecting, and then he recorded those songs, a lot of the songs that he collected in his own version. So that's another example of the kinds of things that we find. So we decided we would sort of jumpstart the process by inviting a set of artists to research our collections, to find a song or tune that really inspired them, and then to arrange or interpret that piece in their own way. And we called that the Archive Challenge. And we ran that as a showcase at the Folk Alliance International meeting in 2015. And it was so successful that we've been doing archive challenges ever since, including a version that we started during the pandemic, which we call the Stay at Home Archive Challenge, in which we ask people to record songs on their own and then submit them to us. So we'll tell you a little more about that later. But before we do that, we are going to get into some singing with our guest today. So let me introduce Debra Cowan. She's a fantastic singer and songwriter. She's also a huge fan of traditional songs, both American and British. She started out just like me as a fan of Steel Eye Span and Fairport Convention. But while I went in for the nerdy folklorist career, she ended up doing things like holding the Monday night residency at Sandy Bell's Bar in Edinburgh, which is one of the premier folk singing pubs in the world. So she's much cooler than I am, but she's but an awesome singer and performer. And we have occasionally shared stages, though, notably at the Mystic Sea Music Festival, where we had a great time together. And we also have some friends in common, including Roseanne Cash, with whom I was privileged to curate a photo exhibit for the library, and who called Debra's singing deeply satisfying, lyrical, and musically elegant. And I couldn't agree more with Roseanne. So Debra lives in New England, and she's made a special study of the Helen Hartness Flanders collection, which the American Folklife Center shares with Middlebury College in Vermont. So yesterday, you'll remember, if you were here, that Jeff Warner performed a song collected by his parents, Anne and Frank Warner, from Lena Born Fish. And today we have a song from the same source, but a different collector. And I'll let Debra tell you more about it and teach you the chorus.
Thanks, Steve. And welcome everybody. And I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of familiar names. So thank you all for joining us. The song is called The Walloping Window Blind. And back in 2003, I think it was, I decided I had been in New England for about 5 years, and I decided to research a collection from my adopted region. I came from California in 1998 and settled here in Massachusetts, and I was told about the Helen Hartness Flanders collection, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to research the collection and choose some songs and put them on a record, which was released in 2005, and it's called Dad's Dinner Pail. And on that and I spent a lot of time listening to the source singers, both at the American Folklife Center. This was before your time, Steve. I don't think you were there yet. And also up in Middlebury College, listening to some of the source recordings up there, and procuring Mrs. Flanders' books. But a lot of the songs jumped out at me, but one in particular was from Lena Born Fish, called The Walloping Window Blind. And I had known about Lena Born Fish because I'm good friends with Jeff Warner, who was on yesterday. Jeff and I have known each other for about 30 years. And so it was very interesting to actually hear her singing. And my gosh, what an amazing singer she was, too. So this is the chorus. It goes, and it's a long one. So, and I think we're going to put the lyrics in the chat so you can read along. Blow ye winds high ho, a roving I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm off on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with a boxing glove 10,000 miles away. It was also the boxing glove reference that intrigued me. So I'll go through it a couple of times and then we'll see what happens. So blow ye winds, hi-ho, a roving I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm up on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. Sing it one more time, maybe two. So blow ye winds, hi-ho, a roving I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm up on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. So there it is. That's the chorus to the Walloping Window Blind. I wasn't sure if Steve had a question or.
No, you can go ahead and sing the song, and we are going to talk about it a little bit after because we like to
Okay,
get into
I
the
wasn't
singing.
sure.
Yeah.
A new ship lies anchored in the bay, while the captain and mate did dine. And hearty was the grog that filled their mugs, but one thing disturbed their minds. At the mariners' inn where they both set in, though the talk was quite unkind, for amid their cheers they'd often hear a walloping window blind. Here's the chorus. So blow ye winds, hi-ho, a roving I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm off on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. Said the captain to the mate, it must be fate, for our ship is unnamed, you know, and the walloping blind disturbed my mind as the raging winds doth blow. To hell with fate, said the sturdy mate, such trifles we will not mind, or the waves will skip and we'll name our ship the Walloping Window Blind. So blow ye winds, hi-ho, a roving I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm off on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. Now a capital ship for an ocean trip is the Walloping Window Blind. No gale that blew disturbed her crew or troubled the captain's mind, and the man at the wheel was said to feel distress when the winds did blow, for it often appeared when the gale had cleared that he'd been in his bunk below. So blow ye winds, hi-ho, a roving I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm off on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. For I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. Usually I'm not at a loss for words like that. So that's the Walloping Window Blind.
Wow, fantastic. Thanks, Deborah. So you mentioned the boxing glove was one of the things that attracted you to this song, and another thing was Lena Bourne-Fish herself and her story. What else can you tell us about the song? I know you, when you recorded it for your album, you did some research on it and you found out interesting things about the Walloping Window Blind.
Well, I found out that it was originally a poem by a man named Charles Carroll, Carryl, and somebody once upon a time even sent me a book. sent me a children's book. This was published in 1963, and it also shows that it was a song. And as I was performing this, the Walloping Window Blind on tour, people would come up to me and say, I used to sing that in school, and I used to sing that out of a songbook. And over in England, people would tell me that they used to sing it in school. So apparently it was very popular, and many people learned it. And I'm sure that's how Mrs. Fish learned it as well, was because it was so popular. And people were just singing it all over the place. And the poem everybody knew it. Everybody knew where it came from.
Yeah, one of the things that is funny is I've seen it misidentified as Lewis Carroll, and it is very Lewis Carroll-esque. There's things in the longer poem which didn't all become the song. There's things like a rub-a-gub tree and stuff that you would find, rub-a-gub bark, and there's stuff that you would find in a Lewis Carroll poem, certainly. So yeah, but his name was Charles Carroll, as Debra said, and it was a very popular kids poem. And one of the interesting things about that is, the poem itself doesn't include the chorus. The chorus comes from the folk song 10,000 Miles Away.
Right.
So it's very easy for someone to sort of meld this song with a chorus that had the same meter, essentially, to create this great song. And that's where the tune was already in oral tradition. People found this great poem and they put it together into a song. We don't know who did that, but Lena Bourne Fish is one of the principal people from whom it was collected. So what a great song to choose. And we wanted to tell you a little bit about Lena Bourne Fish herself. We got some pictures, and we also have a clip of her singing the song. So let's take a look at what Mrs. Fish looked like. And these are pictures from the Warner collection. So they're maybe about 3 years earlier than Mrs. Flanders collected from her. I think the Flanders recording of this was 1943. Mm-hmm. These photos would be from 1941. So that's her, reenacting her answering the door when Frank Warner kind of sort of cold visited her, just went and knocked on the door because he'd heard that this woman had great songs, and so she came to the door, and at some point I think they reenacted that for this photo. So that's the first photo we have of her. This is interesting because, of course, it shows Frank Warner's recording equipment, which was very advanced at the time, and it was electrical and required electricity, which some of them in those days were wind up. They worked on springs, but or they worked on car batteries. That was another way that people were able to do portable recording. They would drive around in their car with the thing, but this could actually plug into the wall. And that's Mrs. Fish. And as you can see, she did have written lyrics a lot of the time. She didn't always sing from them, but she used them to refresh her memory in between songs sometimes. And she was a great archivist. According to Jeff, she published a lot of articles about local history in some local newspapers up there. So, and then we have, I think, one more photo just of her outside her house. So those are some photos to give you a sense of Mrs. Fish herself, what she looked like, what her world was like up there in New England in the early 1940s. I also brought along the field recording from the Flanders collection. This, of course, comes from a disc. It was recorded on an instantaneous disc, and then at some point these were made into archival cassettes for listening access, so that you don't have to listen. Each time you play a disc, it degrades the disc. So we copy them onto another format so you can listen to that. So this is actually dubbed from the tape that the archive maintains up in Middlebury College. This is Mrs. Fish singing The Walloping Window Blind.
This is Lena Bourne Fish of East Jaffa, New Hampshire, now sings for the Flanders Ballad Collection, Middlebury College, Middlebury, Vermont, The Walloping Window Blind. This was recorded August 27, 1943. The Walloping Window Blind. A new ship was anchored in the bay while the captain and mate did dine, and smiled through the fog as they drank their grog, but one thing disturbed their mind. At the mariners' inn where they both sat in, and they thought it quite unkind, for amid their cheer they would often hear a walloping window blind. Then blow, ye winds, hi-ho, roving I will go. I'll stay no more round England's shore, so let the music play. I'm off from the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with a boxing glove 10,000 miles away.
So that was just the first verse, and I will say that this song went on so long in the recording that it actually was longer than the disc side, and so it's distributed over two different disc sides in the Flanders collection. So it's about a 5-minute song in its entirety, but this is that was the first verse and chorus. And as you can see, she had a strong voice, strong personality. And another thing that's kind of cool, Jeff yesterday when talking about Mrs. Fish said, he didn't know where she'd learned the song from. She might have learned it from her uncle, who was a sailor. At the end of this recording, she actually says, I learned that song from a retired sailor who was a friend and neighbor in my childhood. So it goes back a few years earlier to the previous generation. When she was a child, there was a retired sailor who lived nearby who gave her some songs, including this. It's possible that Bay of Biscay came from that source as well. We don't know because she didn't specifically say. But it's kind of neat when the collectors ask little questions like that and you get, some provenance on the songs as well, which we have for this one.
The other interesting thing is that we can't find the first two verses anywhere. Now, if Steve, if you have some information that I don't have, I've never been able to find where those two verses came from, because they don't start. The poem does not start that way. The poem starts a capital ship for an ocean trip. After talking to a number of people, I suspect she might have written them.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And I think that because there's another song that was collected from her called The Weeping Willow Tree, and which my occasional music partner, John Roberts, sings. And that was, he got that from Margaret MacArthur. And and that's a version of The Golden Vanity. And apparently the story goes, now I don't know if this is true or not, is that she didn't like the ending. So she changed it. Mm-hmm. And apparently she used to do that. She didn't like the way a song was going, so she would change it. So I'm wondering if she might have written those first two verses.
Well, it's kind of neat because, you've got this ship with this weird name, the Walloping Window Blind. So why is it called the Walloping Window Blind? Why would you call a ship that? And if she did write these verses, or whoever did write these verses, explained that in the first two verses, which is kind of interesting. So they were adding to the story in a kind of substantive way,
right?
To answer a question that might occur to someone listening to the song. So that's really interesting as well. There are other connections in folk song between window blinds and ships, particularly in the song Patty West, in which which is about a boarding house where sailors learn to do the things that they'll have to do aboard ship, and when they're supposed to furl the sail, they go upstairs and they furl the window blind instead. So there's a possibility that in a real sailors community, people would understand why a ship would be called a window blind. But when you get outside of that community, you might need an explanation, and that might be what Mrs. Fish contributed to the song. So that's a great tidbit too, and we can look for that beginning somewhere else, but it does make sense that Mrs. Fish might have contributed that.
Right. So,
especially
given her history.
Yeah. Yeah. So thinking about Mrs. Fish and about Mrs. Flanders, here we have we have also a situation in which we have a woman collector collecting from women, and she did collect from a lot of women
Mhm.
throughout New England. Do you think that that enhances the collection to some extent in terms of where it fits in with other uh, similar collections of ballads and songs?
Well, I'm always up for anytime women are featured anywhere. That's a part of my thing. I never really thought of it that way. I know that there were a number of informants, specifically in Rhode Island, who were women, and I think with Mrs. Flanders, she was very active in the literary world. So she knew a lot of people who had connections with literature. For instance, one of her informants, Edith Ballinger Price in Rhode Island, in Newport, Rhode Island, was a children's book illustrator and but also an amazing singer. And she was one of the only ones that I heard accompanying herself on the piano, which I thought was very
Very
interesting.
interesting, yeah.
Christina Henry, also who was in Providence, Rhode Island. She also was contributed quite a number of songs to the Flanders collection, and those are two that I can just think of right off the top of my head.
Hmm. Yeah, Mrs. Flanders herself also was quite a good piano player,
Right.
and that was part of her musical training. And I'll just mention, as kind of a separate point of interest, that one of the reasons why this collection exists both at Middlebury College and at the Library of Congress is that Mrs. Flanders was married to the U.S. Senator, one of the U.S. senators from Vermont at the time, Ralph Flanders, and so she used her connections with her husband and with Congress to make sure that this collection was preserved not only in Vermont, but also at a national level in the Library of Congress. She had originally been hired by a Vermont institution to
Right.
document the folk songs of Vermont, but she expanded that to include all of New England, and she deposited a lot of that material at the Library of Congress as well as at Middlebury College to make sure that it would have a national audience and be able to be heard by more people. And she was wildly successful in both of those things. So yeah.
Yes. 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 So I also wanted to talk about some of the things that I've been doing, especially with regards to folk music traditions. One of the things that I'm getting towards the end of it, but I've been part of the Southern New England Apprenticeship Program, sponsored by the Connecticut Historical Society and the Massachusetts Cultural Council. And I have an apprentice. Her name is Kate Clifford. And for the last 10 months, Kate and I have been uh, talking about research. We've been digging into the collections and learning songs and examining songs, and that's just been amazing. It's been an amazing journey for both of us to really do a real deep dive into folklore collections and just how to do research with the sources that we have. And Kate and I are going to be doing a public performance event on June 30th. And you can go to my Debra Cowan Music Facebook page and find that. It's going to be through YouTube, but we're going to talk about our involvement with the program, and there will be singing, of course. But the program is being funded by the National Endowment for the Arts as well. So there's that.
Great. Thanks for that. And yeah, those apprenticeship programs run at the state and local level are really the heart of what a lot of public folklorists do, is to sort of establish these and connect um, performers or creators within folk arts traditions with people who want to learn those traditions. And when I was one of the regional folklorists for the state of New Jersey, that's a large part of what my job was too, was to organize these apprenticeships. And
Mm,
it's just a wonderful way to make sure that our traditions survive. And you know, the folk song community, as we lament all the time is getting older, on average is what I mean. And we really need to keep younger people involved in traditional songs. And so it's great that Debra's doing that, and it's great that the arts councils in Connecticut and Massachusetts are working on that problem, as you might say, or that issue. So it's great to hear that you have an apprentice, and it's also great to hear about your performance event coming up. And that opens another question. Are you starting to emerge from the pandemic as a performer, and what is your schedule looking like coming up?
Well, slowly emerging. I don't know. I think there's and I've heard this from a lot of people. I feel like I'm slowly waking up from a long sleep.
Yeah.
And I do have a couple of things coming up in July here in New England. Nothing far afield yet. But on July 17th, I'll be doing a house concert locally in Sharon, Massachusetts. We may be streaming it, but I don't know. But then on July 22nd, I'm going to be going up to Sandwich, New Hampshire. I didn't even know there was a Sandwich, New Hampshire. And those of us of a certain age may remember an entertainer named John Davidson, who used to be on television, and he's just done it all. Well, he lives up in Sandwich, New Hampshire. He started a venue called Club Sandwich, and I'm going to be the performer that night, July 22nd. It's very small capacity. Virus protocols will be observed. But if you know anybody in New Hampshire, I mean, it's a really close drive for me. So I'll probably go up, do the show, and come back home, sleep in my own bed, which is always a nice thing. And other than that, don't really have anything else on the horizon, though I'm definitely open for anything else to come along.
Well, thanks, Deborah. We Marylanders also appreciate your "Eat Bertha's Muscles" sticker, which we see behind you. Baltimore institution. So,
well, as I was telling Joe earlier, my occasional music partner John Roberts wrote the song "Eat Bertha's Muscles," and whenever we come down to the DC area, we always make a stop at Bertha's and see Tony, and usually have quite a meal over there. So,
well, I'm proud to have been featured on an Ocean Orchestra album with John as well. So we're not on the same song, but we're on the same album together. So that's fun. I did see, before we have you reprise the song a little bit, I did see a question in the chat, which is easy for me to answer. So I'll just go ahead and do that, which is, the question was whether the materials from Flanders in Middlebury and in the Library of Congress are duplicates, or are they separate sets of materials? And for the most part, they are duplicates. That is, she just copied the discs and gave one copy to Middlebury and one copy to the Library of Congress. However, there are materials unique to the Middlebury collection. It's larger than the Library of Congress collection. And there are a few materials in the Library of Congress collections pertaining to Mrs. Flanders that are not in the Middlebury collection. For example, she brought 3 ballad singers to the Library of Congress, and they performed a sort of lecture demonstration of ballads, and that's a separate collection, which is just at the Library of Congress. There are other versions of that collection where she did the same show with some slightly different performers in the Middlebury collection. So it's a little bit, you do have to kind of come to both and look around in both collections to find what's where. And that's part of the challenge of working with the Flanders materials. But for the most part, it's a duplicate collection where the songs and the performances are exactly the same performance, just 2 dubs of the same recording. So great. Debra is going to reprise the song for us so that we can sing ourselves out of the Daily Antidote today. So let us just thank Debra Cowan one more time. That was a brilliant performance of the song, and such a great song. And it's so nice to have someone who can talk about the source material so much, because a lot of people, they learn the song, but they haven't studied it quite as much as Debra has, who's done some really great work on that Flanders collection. So thank you once more, Debra, and join us again all this week for Archive Challenge performances from the American Folklife Center archive.
Thank you. All right, everybody got the chorus down. You have it all memorized, ready to go. Sing exuberantly. I'll even start with the chorus so you can join in. So blow your winds high-ho, hurrah, then I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm off on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. A new ship lies anchored in the bay, while the captain and mate did dine, and hearty was the grog that filled their mugs, but one thing disturbed their minds. At the Mariners' Inn where they both set in, though the talk was quiet and kind, for amid their cheers they'd often hear a walloping window blind. So blow your winds high-ho, hurrah, then I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm off on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. Now a capital ship for an ocean trip is the Walloping window blind. No gale that blew disturbed her crew or troubled the captain's mind, and the man at the wheel was said to feel distress when the wind did blow, for it often appeared when the gale had cleared that he'd been in his bunk below. So blow your winds high-ho, hurrah, then I will go. I'll stay no more on England's shore, so let the music play. I'm off on the morning train, I'll cross the raging main, for I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. For I'm off to my love with the boxing glove 10,000 miles away. Walloping window blind. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Carpe Diem. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Kate. And thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Debra. Whoops, sorry, Steve, go.
That's okay. Yeah, one thing that I wanted to mention, I brought up earlier that that there was a way that you could participate in the archive challenge, and that is to do a video of yourself and submit it to us. And we do have instructions for how to do that on our blog at blogs.loc.gov/folklife, and we'll see if we can drop that a link to that. Oh, there we go. So you just follow that link and it'll tell you how to do that as well. So once again, thanks to Debra. And as she said, also thanks to Joe, thanks to Katie, and thanks to Carpe Diem Arts for holding this wonderful program, The Daily Antidote of Song. We will see you all tomorrow, and we're going to have Joe's goodbyes now. everyone's the best part of everyone's day is Joe's hellos and goodbyes. So.
Steve, thank you so much. That was amazing. And Debra, absolutely great. What a fun song, and actually super fun to get to see Mrs. Fish a second time and to get to know her a little better. Hearing her voice was incredible. And today's chat, as per usual, the sort of Daily Antidote University that happens a lot of times in our archive challenge weeks, the chat was so great that I was actually cutting things out of it and popping it into Facebook Live so that the folks on Facebook could be part of the incredible discussion that was happening in here. The archive challenge link is also out there for you folks on Facebook Live. That invitation to join the archive challenge goes to everybody who can sing or thinks they can sing. It's an absolutely wide open thing, and we'd love to have you participate. So thank you so much. Glad you joined us today. Thank you, Facebook Live, for being here. We can't wait to see you tomorrow. And thank you again to Debra and to Katie and to Steve.